Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share a preview for the Sony ZV-1. This camera was announced this morning, May 26, 2020, $750 US, and it will start shipping on June 11th. It will eventually go up to $799 US, and essentially what it is, for the most part, the guts of an RX100 Mark VII with the lens of an RX100 Mark V, like I have right here, stuffed into a CyberShot body that does not have an electronic viewfinder like every RX100 has now for years, that pops out of this space right here. And also, instead of a display that flips around the top like this for self-filming and self-imaging stills, it now will come around the side. The body is not going to be weather sealed. It is not a magnesium alloy. It is instead plastic like a CyberShot. And then its best friend will be this accessory that I covered a while back, Sony's latest Bluetooth grip, which I think is a fantastic piece of kit. It is expensive at over 130, I think it's roughly 140 US, but it is a must-have if you plan on using it with any camera that supports it. Those cameras really being the A6600, the A64, I think the A6400 is supported, the RX100 Mark VII, my A7R4. Those are the sorts of cameras, the latest Gen A9. That's what this has worked with up until now. Now we finally have a more affordable ZV-1 that it will work with. And it makes a lot more sense with the ZV-1 because, as I mentioned, it is designed specifically for vlogging. And in the past, Sony's vlogger kits, which I always kind of scratched my head at, were essentially this camera, bundled with the older version of the wired grip that this ended up replacing. So, at $750, the ZV-1 sounds like a bargain, but I think it's more a result of what Sony was able to put together. I'm moving this aside to show you what this ZV-1 looks like. I think it's more a product of what Sony was able to put together at an affordable price. And also, if you sit down in the middle of a pandemic and try to figure out what you can scrape together that will sell well while everyone is stuck inside, because I'll tell you right now, not easy to sell cameras right now. I mean, it's not easy to sell anything in the middle of a global pandemic. Well, that's what a pandemic is, not to be, redundant. This was a pretty good idea, and they already had this in the oven before the pandemic, so I guess it kind of just all lined up. And this had been leaked for a while now, at least images of this. We knew it was coming, but we didn't know exactly what. And I should have my review unit soon. I don't have an exact date, but hopefully sooner rather than later. And I'm excited to share it with all of you. But to be clear, this is not an RX100. This is another option. It's clearly directed at YouTubers and influencers, and that's a good thing, because instead of just bundling an older RX100 with a grip, they've actually created a new product. And it's been a while since Sony has done that. The RX0 is really the last new product that comes to mind, and now we have the ZV-1. So the screen flips around the side. It is not a true touchscreen. It has the same touchscreen functionality that Sony's latest generation of cameras have, so don't get crazy. You're not going to be able to jump through the menus with that. The microphone array at the top, which is where the flash would normally live, okay, right here, has now been replaced by a giant microphone array, and that's a good thing too. If the mic really works as well as Sony is claiming, and from what I've heard so far in demos, that's a very positive thing. I'm going to take this in a little bit tighter. So essentially, those are the two key points, I would say, that you're getting: a screen that now flips around the side, as well as much better audio. However, you cannot monitor that audio, okay? Keep that in mind as well. This can flip around and essentially be closed, so the screen is not exposed when you're, if you want to protect it, you can. It does have clean HDMI out with audio. The hot shoe has been added, I will say, since there is no hot shoe right now on the RX100s. Another thing that differentiates it and reminds you, this is not an RX100 camera at all, even though the sensor and the lens both come from previous RX generations. And that's what I see here, is that they've taken things, Sony, they've already had, and then thrown some engineering and software into the mix. The grip never existed on an RX100. You always had to add that optional $15 grip that I covered when it first launched. But now you have capability that exists in the RX100's realm and also does not. That's what I really see here. And this is smart of Sony to do this. So the overhead. an important shot. Let me go a little wider, getting a little grainy there from the Surface Book 3 that I'm shooting this on, just the tablet portion. You see the top, right? We now have a hot shoe on the far left, the microphone array in the center, and then an on and off dedicated button, a dedicated mode button, because you may have noticed there's no mode dial, a dedicated video record button. I like that they've done that. Of course, your shutter button, toggle for zoom, and then a defocus background dedicated button. So really tailoring this to vloggers and influencers. So there's nothing to be confused about whatsoever. Still an expensive camera, has a lot of the features of the latest RX100 Mark 7, but this really makes me wonder about what's coming with the Mark 8. We're still working with the same battery type. They're claiming battery life is a little bit better. I'll see when I get it. They're also claiming overheating is a little bit less apt to occur. Microphone input, multi-port, aka micro USB, no Type-C here. HDMI out, I already said, it is a clean out that does carry audio. No way to monitor audio. That's a pretty big deal for a vlogging camera. So that to me is a little bit of a miss. But if you know Sony, and I know Sony, that's because these features are all going to live in the latest RX100 Mark 8. I wouldn't bet my life on it, but if I had to make a wager, you know, Sony omits features from their different models, like most manufacturers do, in order to establish other models. And if you look at the current APS-C lineup, it's very obvious that they omit things in order to make you step up. And if you want to save money, well, you're going to lose some features. So here, what is the biggest loss? Well, it's build quality. We don't have magnesium alloy build. It's weather sealing. It's losing that OLED EVF that is a masterful piece of engineering that I would argue is one of the most expensive parts of the RX100 lineup of cameras, other than, of course, the sensor and the lens assembly. So that's part of the reason I think that the price is achievable. And also, just going through these stock Sony images, as we get to the user images, and there you see it sitting on the tripod remote, the Bluetooth remote, which is a great remote. Again, if you have a camera that supports it, it's expensive, but well worth it. You can see now they're showing regular people like you and me, meaning they're not showing actors posing as professional photographers. And the reason is because that's not who they want to sell this camera to. They still want to sell the RX100 to hobbyists, enthusiasts, and pros. This is not for them. That doesn't mean that those people will not buy this, of course. I think there will be overlap, but I think Sony has been strategic and very smart about what they've done here, because they're giving you, again, the autofocus system and the eye detection for both still and video that you get from the RX100 Mark 7. They're even giving you the active stabilization, the active SteadyShot inside 4K video, which only exists in the Mark 7, but I'm sure it'll exist in the Mark 8. And it makes me wonder if this stuff is going to trickle down now into other Sony products like the RX0 Mark III. Let's hope that happens, as well as continuous autofocus. They're bringing all of that into this model, but again, omitting build quality, omitting an EVF, omitting a mode dial, omitting just, you know, a plethora of things. But they are giving you a hot shoe. They are giving you a better built-in microphone. So, you know, it's flexible in some ways, but again, what they're showing is that this isn't a camera for anyone outside of a very specific target market. And the RX100 has always had a target market, and now the ZV line will as well. And it makes me wonder how many other ZV models we'll see. That's what's more exciting to me, is that it's been a long time since we've seen Sony make a new product. And this is a new product, even though to me it feels a lot like a stripped down RX100 made more affordable with a few new features and a screen that swivels out instead of up. It is a new product, and that's exciting, especially in the middle of a pandemic. You really don't expect anything new, right? In fact, you know, the Insta360 1R that I recently got, that's a product that should have come out, you know, back in the holiday season of 2019 and was delayed. But here you see the background defocus switch. There's also a product, I don't remember what they call it, but like a product feature mode, so that you can make sure that when you stick your hand out with a product, it quickly draws focus to that and defocuses the background. I mean, they have designed this camera for YouTubers and influencers and vloggers. And quite frankly, it's about time. You know, Canon has tried and failed. I think Sony has hit this right on the mark. But again, if you're in the market for a camera and you want the best, all-in-one compact package, this is larger than an RX 100, at least the current gen. It's a little bit bigger, but it should deliver just about all of the functionality. I go into battery saver mode here on the tablet. It should give you just about all of the functionality, but one-up it in certain ways, like the audio. This is something that is important. The optical SteadyShot active mode that I keep talking about, that's something that should have been in all RX 100 models, really since the Mark IV when 4K was introduced at 30 frames. And yes, there is still overheating with this, but they claim it's better. Let's hope that it is. But hopefully you get the point here. 24 frames per second without blackout. You have the super slow-mo. You have the Imaging Edge mobile app. All of this is there. I mean, the real-time tracking is huge. So what is missing? I guess that's really becomes the question. What could possibly go wrong with this? Well, I'm not going to say anything because right now on paper, as I've been mentioning, this looks like a really smart move by Sony. It essentially is giving them the gravity to launch a new product that requires going outside in a world where you right now really shouldn't be. I mean, I'm not telling you what to do, obviously. You want to go out there and be reckless, that's up to you. I'm doing my part. I'm trying to stay at home. That's what I've done for months on end. And yeah, it's not fun, but there's one way to get through this. And, unfortunately, it's been made political. But all of that aside, this is a camera, the ZV-1, that will also have, from what I understand, software updates to allow it to turn into a webcam, something that, unfortunately, most cameras cannot do. Right now, you would need an Elgato product like CamLink in order to do that, which has been sold out and selling for like $400 because insane people are, well, insane. Sony is on to something here. And we don't see anyone else coming out with like a pandemic special, but that's what I see the ZV-1 as. Now, normally, if we weren't in a pandemic, it would just be a vlogger special, obviously, right? But we are in a pandemic. And, it's not really easy to sell cameras when, again, going outside is, quite frankly, not good for you. And I don't mean that literally, but hopefully everyone out there watching this is intelligent enough to understand what I'm communicating. So I think what Sony's done is smart. I think the timing worked out, however much of it was intentional or not. I think the old vlogger packages were pretty much, a joke. It was like a way of getting rid of old inventory. And it is, as I've stated, refreshing to finally see a new product category from Sony. And it also, as in my opinion is the most important element, means we're going to see some real changes in products going ahead. It makes me wonder, will the next RX 100 have a video record button up at the top as it tries to go into focus, my camera here? Will the video record button move from, the back of the camera to the top of the camera? Will they put in that audio, the microphone 3-capsule array into the new RX 100? Really what this ends up leaving me with is incredible anticipation for what the RX 100 Mark 8 has to offer. Because the Mark 7 was absolutely, without question, the best RX 100 ever made to date. And you could already see that they were aware of the influencer vlogger nature that they needed to incorporate into that camera, but they don't want the identity of the RX 100 to be solely vested in vlogging and influencers. And I understand why. That's not the lineage of the product. So now they have something that can be that device. And that's definitely good. And they'll build on that. That will only improve as the RX 100 improves. If the ZV-1 is a success, which I anticipate it will be, so will the lineage of the ZV-1. So again, to recap and to round things out on what was supposed to be a quick preview, but this was an interesting product, no question about it. To me, the ZV-1 looks to be well priced. I mean, everyone's saying, wow, it's affordable. How is this possible? I'm getting an RX 100 Mark 7 for $750. No, you're not. You're not getting an RX 100 Mark 7 for $750. You're getting a CyberShot body that's slightly larger, has no weather sealing, no EVF, no mode dial, no focus ring or zoom ring, depending on how you want to program it. You're getting a downgrade in every one of those ways. You're giving up the flash, but what are you getting? You're getting the internal guts of the RX 100 Mark 7 with the lens of the Mark V VA with an ND filter, and that is what a lot of people have been waiting for. Not necessarily that exact combination. I think I know from being an active member on numerous camera forums and just knowing word on the street, that a lot of people have not been in love with the RX100 line going to telephoto, to that 200mm reach. And a lot have wanted to see the 24-70 f1.8 back on with an ND filter. And well, now they got it. But this isn't quite what they were looking for. So everyone's saying like, oh, they finally gave me back the shorter, faster lens with the ND filter. A lot of those people, they're not the people that are going to be happy that it was at the expense of giving up an EVF, even with this lower price or the build quality or the weather sealing. That's just a fact. Fact, fact, fact. People who don't care about any of those things, this camera's a blessing for. But for RX100 users that have been waiting for what I just described, that's not what you're getting today. That's not what was announced. Could that still happen? Sure. Do I think Sony's going to keep rolling dice in a pandemic? No. This plan, I think, absolutely existed before the pandemic because the vlogger thing has been a theme in the industry for a while, and it's come to a head finally with this. And I think that's a good thing. And again, it is kind of the pandemic special. But do not be mistaken, even though this has a Zeiss logo on the front, the ZV-1, not the RX100, it's not an RX100. Does it have the 1-inch stack sensor and, you know, the autofocus performance? Yes, and that's critical. That's so important. But users that wanted that lens back, wanted the ND filter, this still may not be the camera you wanted, because even though it's got better audio, a lot of those shooters do not like shooting with LCD screens. So for every reviewer out there saying, I never cared about the EVF was garbage, I completely disagree. I think the EVF sets the RX100 lineup apart. Does that mean I always use it? No. But that is what we need to keep in mind with the launch of the ZV-1. I see a very promising product, and I see an incredible amount of overlap, but at the end of the day, I still believe that the RX100 Mark 7 or Mark 8 is going to be more compelling, regardless of pricing, folks, than the ZV-1. And the ZV-1 is going to be something that when it goes on sale and gets even cheaper, rather than its, you know, incline going from $750 to $800, but as it gets less expensive and drops down to like that $500–600 range, it's going to be a steal for a lot of people. And it's going to be a better purchase for a lot of people who will never travel outside of auto. That's what I really see this as. It's like, you know, the RX100 for dummies, but I don't even like saying that because I'm not calling any of you dummies, and I'm not calling the camera an RX100. I hope that makes sense. So, an exciting product, a price point that I'm not shocked. I know a lot of reviewers are, oh, how is it not 1,000? It's because it's not meant to cannibalize RX100 sales. That's why. And they've cut enough corners and added enough new little things on the software side and the flip-out screen and the mic that it's got a new look and feel, even if it really is an incredibly stripped-down RX100 Mark 7 with a new mic and screen. Not really new screen, but new way of folding out. Hope that all makes sense. Didn't plan for this to be nearly 20 minutes, but it's a pandemic. Where are you going anyway? Hopefully you're staying at home. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. Hit that like button, and as usual, please feel free to subscribe. Stay safe. Later.